Chapter 1, The Return. Grief waits in silence. Duty does not. Earth, Arlington, Virginia. Anno Domini, December 27th, 2002. The spirit of the holiday season died inside of Lena as she looked down at her daughters. They sat on a blanket over their father's freshly sodded grave. The image burned itself into her memory. For as long as she lived, Lena knew this image would stay with her.
Mama, is Daddy really down there?
Layla asked, patting the grass next to her. Yes, sweet pea, he is. The child didn't cry, only appearing thoughtful and confused. Her sister, Sasha, pulled her thumb out of her mouth, staring at the plain, white stone.
Am I still going to look like Daddy when I'm a big girl?
Lena mustered a smile. I know you will. What she didn't know was when they'd be back. Life, duty, and the need to keep her daughter safe meant coming back was not a probability. She gave the twins the time they needed, knowing this would be the last time they visited the gravesite for the foreseeable future. When Sasha finally relinquished her flower, laying it gently on the ground, Lena knew it was time. Sasha stood, gathering up the blanket in her skinny arms, then bent to kiss the plain white cross that marked the grave.
I'll be back, Daddy, I promise. Be a good boy and wait for me, okay?
Lena swallowed hard, blinking away the sting in her eyes. Come on, we have a long drive. She took her time getting the 5-year-old twins into the car and strapped into their safety seats. The compact sedan was crammed with their belongings, making the twins cranky. But then, why wouldn't they be? The poor things barely understood what was happening, didn't fully grasp that burying their father meant they would never see him again. Lena's heart ached for her babies as she settled into the driver's seat and checked the rearview mirror. Sasha popped her little thumb into her mouth to stare out of the window. Layla pulled her whoopee over herself and settled her head against the backrest, then found her mother's eyes in the mirror.
Are we going to your house now, Mama?
Yes, baby, we are. Layla smiled faintly.
And we're going to meet Auntie Lindsay there?
Lena pasted on a patient smile. Yep. Sasha didn't look at her mother, but her small voice held a definitive note.
Auntie Lindsay has to be my best friend now. Daddy was my best friend, but I don't have a best friend no more. So it has to be Auntie Lindsay.
I'm here, Sasha. Lena chuckled. I can be your best friend. Sasha shook her head.
You're just my mama. Auntie Lindsay promised me ice cream.
Lena clipped her seatbelt into place as a figure in the distance caught her attention. The man stood maybe 50 meters away, but she recognized him. Heartbeat accelerating, Lena kept her eyes on him as she revved the engine. You've never even met your Aunt Lindsay. What if she doesn't give you ice cream? Sasha turned to her mother and met her eyes through the rearview mirror.
You won't let no one lie to me. You never let no one lie to me. You protect me.
Forcing down the ball of emotion those innocent, trust-filled words caused her, Lena smiled faintly and pulled out onto the road. Checking the rearview mirror, she scanned the cemetery behind her. He was gone.
Space. Charity. The Minister of Bantam Health and Progenic Care was dead. His blood lay on the floor of the ministry, surrounding his head in a crimson halo. Upon his brow was a swollen lump, indicating a head wound. No other signs of violence or foul play were apparent. Yet something did not sit well with Camuel. A sense of foreboding whirled around him. Camuel activated the security's holographic recording. Olaf, the minister, was depicted, tidying up his workspace after the last of his charges left with their progenitors. He seemed fatigued, but otherwise in good health, until he clasped his head, stumbled and lost his balance, striking his head upon the edge of his workstation. By the time Charity noted his failing vital signs and sent up the alarm, it was too late. Olaf was gone. The Reptilian Regulative Ethics Detachment, RRED, moved about the room, performing their function as investigators, while Camuel stood back and watched the process with sharp, critical eyes. As in Carl, Camuel did not have the luxury of ruminating upon his loss. He had to think past the dull ache in his gut. A trip to Earth was in order. It was the closest populated planet to Charity's position, and his people had a full, long history with the indigenous people, the Ind Earths. He would find all he needed there, 'Twas a quick fix and plausible solution to a problem he should have rectified long ago. Having only one medical provider for the few bantlings was irresponsible, so as not ensuring someone trained under Olaf in the event of an emergency such as this. Bantlings were the highest of blessings, a symbol of celestial favor from the Eternal One and the All. They were the one veritable treasure of the universe. Even a single day, with no opportunity to access a minister, was reckless and dangerous to their frail young lives. Turning his back, he left the red to their work. Anger at his failure pooled in his gut as he traversed the epicenter pathways of the mothership he commanded. He would gather a small contingent of personnel, outfit a forager, and leave for Earth immediately. He would not fail his people again. Earth, between Roswell and Alamogordo, New Mexico. Anno Domini, December 29, 2002. Camuel made his way through the hallways of the quarantine building, where star travelers were greeted and processed before being given free rein of the compound. Camuel never understood the affinity the Eternal One held for the Indearths, when there seemed to be such a flaw in their genetic compilation. As he looked around him, he wondered if the eternal favor finally waned. They appeared to be deteriorating as a species rather than evolving. It was with irritation that he and his pilot, Maud, arrived at the shower stations. Contamination, disease, pestilence. Bah! No race of aliens was more hygienic than Ka'al. After being cleansed, the escort gave them fresh clothing to wear. The Ind-Earths called these lightweight, comfortable suits scrubs. They took his personal clothing and sealed them in clear bags to be returned to him upon his exit from the compound. They gave him a small, flimsy square, called a badge, to wear upon his person, showing his visitor status. His escort reminded him of standing policies.
There is to be no instigating, nor response given to provocation. There are no allowances for killing Ind-Earths. Only Aramaic will be spoken at all times.
Camuel waved the annoying monotone reptilian away. He had been traveling to this planet for centuries, and he thought it prudent that Ind-Earths should learn to follow their own laws. There was a time when all species of star travelers walked this dirt-covered rock of a planet freely. Camuel's people were once revered as gods by those who overpopulated and polluted this rock. They were only half wrong. Ka'al left Earth to avoid the harmful influence the Ind-Earths were becoming. Where Ka'al believed in working with the natural design to further the eternal plan, Ind-Earths seemed bent on proving they were above the creation. Having seen the state of the planet since his last visit some 400 Earth years ago, he wondered at their ego. Making his way over to the large metal sliding doors that led into the main complex, he lifted his badge to swipe against the security scanner. For doors that weighed approximately 1 ton each, they moved with surprising silence. He scanned the main receiving room with shrewd calculation, perceiving no imminent threat. Camuel and Maud crossed the room with the surety of familiarity, ignoring all the eyes that followed their movement. It was rare for any planet to welcome Ka'al upon their terror, let alone he who bore the mark of an Ka'al. They dipped into a corridor and followed the glyphs. A few moments later, the door they were looking for appeared, and Camuel opened it without so much as a knock. He knew the image he made as he stood in the doorway with his head held high and his shoulders squared. His enormous form caused a glow to stretch across the room. All eyes went to Camuel once again, and a hush fell over the crowd. He searched each face until he found the one he sought. The man had not changed. He stood perhaps 10 meters from Camuel, close enough to note the genuine surprise in those irises, painted by an albinoid red. His white skin, void of the pigment of his Sumerian heritage, neither dimmed nor spotted with age. Yet the way he wore his moonlit hair was much changed. It no longer hung down his back, weighted by beaded braids and twine, but was cropped short and close to his head. His clothing was different as well, no longer clad in flowing robes, but soft, faded blue trousers and a black tunic of some kind. Later, Camuel learned these items were called jeans and a t-shirt. Noah made a name for himself long ago amongst Ka'al. He was a quiet man with a natural touch and a heart never truly marred by darkness. His blind faith and loyal soul kept him pure and set on his path. Camuel respected Noah for both his intelligence and his integrity. He took a single step into the room. When he spoke, he was careful to moderate his tone to show his respect. "Do you welcome me?" Noah took an equal step forward.
With a glad-filled heart.
The two men embraced, breaking into companionable laughter. So many years.
Lifetime's worth.
Noah agreed.
Why have you returned?
Camille looked around the room at all the curious onlookers. Long had it been since being surrounded by so many watchers. He took in their numbers and designations, and though he maintained his easy composure, the lick of adrenaline spread through him. In return, their copper skin glittered in agitation at his presence. Ka'al and the watchers, ever at odds, often pitted their wills against the other, mostly in good sportsmanship and other times. Well, those were musings for another day. Noah, however, was a good and trusted friend, or had been. Realizing the passage of time could have ramifications, Camille spoke quietly. I need your ears, bent to me in confidence, old friend. Noah escorted him to a room just off to the side and closed the door behind them.
We can talk here. We sweep these rooms daily.
Despite the reassurance, Camille's eyes searched every visible surface. We have come for permission to harvest. Our minister of bantling care is dead. Perhaps midwives as well. It is near time for procreation. Also, our numbers have dwindled. We respectfully request any Ka'al who volunteer return to us. Noah tilted his head.
The skies have been unkind to you lately, eh?
A short-lived war with the Maravana. Sympathy crossed Noah's features, though Camille could not cipher for whom the sympathy was meant. Ka'al were no cowardly, meek people. Indeed, they were hale and lusty, passionate and zealous. Yet they avoided the heartache of war when possible. I beg your favor in keeping this between us. I would not have my brother hear of this. He has begun a new life, and I would have him remain unbothered if that be his will.
My word.
Noah assured.
The moment we can gather the volunteers and have them sign your ship's law and ordnance contracts, I'll inform you. How is your brother? I haven't seen Yeshua in so long.
He's doing well. How can I repay you?
When the time comes, you'll want to deny me, but I'll come to you all the same.
Camille's gut clenched. Very well. When the time comes...
Give me a month. One complete moon cycle too.
Noah began, only to be interrupted. For all else I have asked yet not for the young one's care. We are in critical need of a minister. Our bantlings are afflicted. Noah nodded in sympathy.
Will you accept a Beta Dracona?
Camille sat back in shock, a half-human and half-reptile being. That is allowed again?
We have a lot to catch up on, old friend,
Noah said with an exaggerated sigh.
Though you will need to speak to her in English. No talent for languages, that one, although she is talented as a healer.
They spoke for a while longer as the friends they were, sharing and laughing until it was time for Camille to make his way back to Charity with the Beta Dracona. As Maud readied the vessel, Camille ensured his new citizen was settled. The Beta Dracona smiled at Camille, her eyes steady on his, as she aimed the full impact of her pheromones at him. He gave her a smile of promise. The female would be a pleasant diversion after the day he had... Maud issued a mild, frustrated curse. What is it? Camille asked, going to his seat.
Our shields are not powering, Kaivan. The air forces will detect us.
Camille waved a negligent hand. Then we hurry. Though why Noah refuses to disclose our existence to the Ind-Earths is beyond my comprehension.
Earth, Roswell, New Mexico. Anno Domini, December 29th, 2002. There was no darkness, quite like New Mexico at midnight. With nothing but brush for miles around, the winding roads seemed endless, with hardly any streetlights to illuminate the dusty, winding back roads. The scent of snow hung in the air, and after driving for days, Lena kept her window cracked to welcome the brisk freshness that kept her awake. It's all too much, Lindsay. She spoke to her newly found cousin, whom she spent the last 2 hours on the phone with. I don't know what to do.
Yes?
Came Lindsay's no-nonsense response.
Yes, you do. You're a mom, and from what little I know, a great one. You can fall apart when you get home.
They've been through so much. I don't know how to explain it all to them. Seth and I, we had so much potential. We were just too...
Damaged?
Lindsay supplied when Lena faltered.
I know, hun. I'm so sorry.
Checking the rearview mirror, Lena glanced at her sleeping children. Sasha had her father's blonde hair, long, lanky limbs, but Lena's burnished brown skin and green eyes. The child's coloring always made Lena think of the beach, as if the little girl lived and breathed for the ocean. Which she did. Sasha loved the ocean. Layla had her mother's dark midnight black hair and petite build, but her father's blue eyes and fair freckled complexion. Despite their differences, the girls shared the same facial features. The shape of their eyes, nose, and lips, jaw, and even their hairlines were exact replicas of each other. And, well, they were all she had in this world. I don't know how to help them through this.
I know. And I wish we had found you sooner. We would have been there for you every step of the way.
Lindsay's voice wavered with emotion.
But right now you need to focus. I need to know that you're all safe so I can spoil those sweet little cousins of mine.
I'm always safe.
Yeah, says the lady who spent the last 8 months in an Iraqi combat zone.
Came the droll retort.
But that's why I'm taking the first flight out. I'll meet you in Colorado the moment you get there. We can...
A startling flash of light off to the right snapped Lena's attention back to the road. At first, she thought to ignore it, thinking it was just a car in the distance. Except the light grew larger and larger, traveling at a speed Lena knew to be impossible. The unmistakable sound of fighter jets roared overhead. What the hell was going on? Suddenly the light veered, aiming straight for her car. Her heart hammered, skin electrified. Something was coming. Something old. Primal. Thrumming with anticipation. Hungry. Son of a bitch.
What?
It was the last thing Lena heard before her phone lost connection and loud, pulsing throbs filled the air. Was that a plane? It was coming in too fast. Her sedan vibrated, and her arms prickled with static energy. The light became blinding as sparks flashed in a confusing kaleidoscope of color. The sound of screeching and breaking glass rent the air. Then, in a rush of scalding cold, everything went black.